Welcome back, baseball fans. 1972-75 Carryover League. This is your World Series wrap-up show. Oakland wins the World Series 4-1, finishing 35-13. Cincinnati finishes 31-20 for the season. This is one of the best winning percentages we've seen. Normally, a team that wins a World Series wins 37-38 games, but Oakland just breezed through their schedule without needing extra games and getting byes and so forth. Only 13 losses. The only time they lost was in an interleague battle against Atlanta. So congratulations to the Oakland A's. Here are the World Series stats for the two squads. We'll begin with Oakland. They hit 229, as did Cincinnati. They scored 19 runs, and Cincinnati scored 19 runs. Yet it was 4-1, not 4-3. And that was just because of the way these one-run games fell. The Stars, Joe Rudi, he'll be your World Series MVP. 389. Could give it to Campaneris, but we also could have given it to the big hits we had by Mike Hegan, though he otherwise was awful. And how about Gene Tennis and Sal Bando? They had big hits, but they were awful. Matter of fact, Sal Bando's one double and one homer and a 125 average won a couple games for Oakland. The rest of the time, he stunk. So, Reggie, 211. Great pitching by the Reds. 19 runs in 5 games for both teams. Incredible. Only 3 home runs for the A's. Pitching, of course, Al Downing. I hope he's remembered for the 7 shutout innings in a game that his bullpen blew for him, that they ultimately won. Dave Hamilton didn't give up a run, nor did Riley Fingers. Kenny Holtzman had 1 magnificent start. Cavish Hunter had 2 quality starts. It was Don Wilson giving Cincinnati the gap in runs. This is how Cincinnati caught up in the net run differential off of Don Wilson's poor start. And then Jim Todd and Bob Locker were really making things interesting for Oakland. They seemed to overmanage themselves, yet when you think about overmanaging, you win the series 4-1 anyway. So that's not a bad gig. Playing a lot of matchups instead of just handing the ball to Riley Fingers. Eventually, if you hand the ball to Riley Fingers for 2 inning saves all the time, he's going to wear himself out. So they used him perfectly. As you can see, a win and 2 saves. Raleigh could have been your World Series MVP. We decided to give it to an everyday player. Joe Rudi had 7 hits. He had the big home run in the extra inning game 4. So this was my determining factor. The game 4 victory that gave Oakland a 3-1 series lead. That was a big move. Plus, they asked Rudi to bunt a couple times in this series. So it was a very unselfish player and a great defensive player. So let's move on to Cincinnati. So the Reds, yeah, the same story, really. A 229 average, great pitching in the series. That's because 72, the bats were kind of cold in 72. And the pitching was on fire. Morgan, it's 316. Tolan, 350. Rose, 286. You know, but Johnny Bench, he did have the 2 home runs, but he only had 3 hits total, 3 for 21 in the World Series. That's going to hurt. Tony Perez, even worse, 3 for 19 without an extra base hit. Out of your number 3 hitter. That can't happen. Mincher hit into that double play, so that's a shame that a free agent would fall into that realm of the guy who made the dubious play. Dennis Menke actually hit into another one of those game-ending double plays, but he actually hit 286 in the series, so he was all right otherwise. Aker and Riddleberger were called on. They did fine. Didn't allow anything. Billingham had a fine start. Bourbon did everything you could in the bullpen, yet he was charged with the 2 losses. A 159 ERA and a 106 whip. Clay Carroll pitched to an ERA of 3, and, well, he pitched to an ERA of 3. That's what his card suggests. Gullett continues a general run of mediocrity, which is very strange. Hasn't really dominated in 2 years. And he was just okay in this series. Really, Gary Nolan called on twice, could not collect one win in his 2 starts, and just kind of ordinary there. That's a shame. But again, Nolan won both of his starts in the 70-73 series. So he's 2-1 in 4 World Series games against the big bad Oakland A's. Fred Norman hung in there, got a no decision. So even though he pitched poorly, he did get a no decision on that one. Yeah, 333, 360. Just tough breaks for the Reds. They really got hampered. I mean, you turn one of those losses into a win, we're still playing baseball. It's 3-2. You know, either one. Or give the Reds both victories, and they're up 3-2 going to Oakland. It's just that the pivotal play backfired for the Cincinnati Reds in a 5-game World Series. One other thing we can look at here is the overall stats of the league, and that is the predictor of how we were going to finish statistically. So, the final stats of the season are in, and these are the final stats of the season in the previous years. We'll see what these columns mean. It's at-bats, runs, hits, RBIs, doubles, triples, homers, but we'll look at that closely up above. So I made a prediction here with a question mark. Knowing that 72 was going to be not much of a hitting year, and based on the 2023 season, I predicted the league would hit 255 and an ERA of 365. Let's kind of look at that. Let's look and see what happened. Well, here is batting average. They hit 260, so they did the identical. We can actually copy this here. So we didn't actually hit 265 or 2, and the 365 ERA turns out it was 385, which suggests possibly that I selected a lot of guys with good on-base percentage, which makes sense. When I see a guy with a bad batting average, I'll look for the walks. And if you got walks in your card, I'll get you in the league. So if you get on by walk, that's an earned run. So that might be why the ERA went up slightly from 2023, from 374 up to 385. So where does it go in 2025 next year? Well, next year, it'll be the year of the designated hitter. So I have to predict a bump there. You know, it just makes sense. So I'm going to predict next year it gets up to 265. And the ERA, 395. Because 73, the DH is introduced. And then, of course, we have universal DHs in our league. And it just means that you're going to get more offense. You look at the number of games played. The most games played indicates the most competitive of the leagues. The high in this era, let's see here. Yeah, it is 2022. 657 games played in 2022. Well, you know why? That is the year of the previous Cincinnati-Oakland World Series that went 7 games. So that was a very competitive year. Then last year, it was the Tigers and the Pirates in the World Series. 26 fewer games. And now we return to about average, 643 games. So, but if you look down here, 620 and 22, if I could stay well beyond that, that means I'm going to be, when you see a low number of games played, this means that I've not done a great job for the poor teams in the league, and you have really great teams beating up on the lousy teams too much. So that can be addressed in drafting better for all teams. And since that correction that started in 2021, you're seeing more games played. So who knows how many games we'll play in 2025? Let's be positive and assume we increase again. So, with that, we'll call this the World Series wrap-up video. Tomorrow, we'll have the elimination of the Reds, and then the elimination of the A's, and then reconciliation of the card set for 1972. Thanks for checking us out, and we'll see you next time.